Hello everyone, this is Mark from Trinity Inspection. Today we're going to be looking at an electrical panel. This is in the course of a home inspection. There's many things to look at in an electrical panel during home inspection, but what we're going to be focusing on today is what's called a double tap. Double taps, for those of you who do not know, are when you attach two wires to one specific breaker or one terminal on a breaker. And as a matter of fact, if you can see here, there actually are two wires attached to this one breaker, which is actually labeled dishwasher and which is in the off position. If you can see these wires, a gray and a black one behind it, those are two wires on one terminal on one breaker. That's not the way it's supposed to be. If you can see, all the other breakers actually have one wire per terminal. As a matter of fact, this top breaker here is not even being used, nor this 20 amp breaker on the bottom is also not in use at the moment. I'm not quite sure why whoever did this actually felt the need to do it, because you actually do have other spaces here to put that extra wire. The problem with double taps is that the manufacturer's breaker was not manufactured to accept two wires, to accept what's called the load of these two circuits. So what can end up happening is you can actually have an overheating of the circuit. The other thing, what usually happens when you have a double tap, is that these two wires are not properly fastened down underneath this terminal screw, and so you can have what's called arcing. Arcing obviously leads to fires. So this is a safety hazard for the people living in this home. This should be repaired by a professional electrician. There actually, once again, there are two other breakers in here. The one on the top, this is a 15 amp breaker, and the one on the bottom, a 20 amp breaker. The electrician would come here and determine which breaker he may be able to use depending on the size of the wire, the gauge of the wire. If it's a 15 amp breaker like this one up top, and if this is a 14 gauge wire, which it actually feels like, he would be using that. He would determine at that moment which breaker he can use depending on, once again, depending on the AWG or the gauge wire that is actually here. So he would actually also make sure which one of these wires indeed goes to the dishwasher if this is labeled correctly. But that's regardless. The take-home message here is that these two wires on that one terminal, which is called a double tap, is a safety and a fire hazard that should be repaired immediately by a professional electrician, and before something happens, which we all obviously wouldn't all like to see. So this is actually typically found during a home inspection. It is very common to find double taps, sometimes triple taps, which is three wires on one terminal. These are actually very typical, and they are typically found during home inspection, but typical does not make it right. So once again, this should be repaired immediately by a professional electrician, and this is not permitted in most panels. Once again, Square D is the only manufacturer I'm aware of that actually allows this, but this should be repaired immediately for the safety of those who inhabit this home. This is Mark Shanley once again from Trinity Inspection. Thanks for joining me.